550s are just a giggle machine when you're riding them. The difference between riding one of these versus a 750 or a smaller capacity bike like a 350 is that it's the middleweight champion. You know, you've got the top speed capability of a larger motorcycle, especially when they're tuned well with a rebuilt motor. But then you've got the convenience of a smaller motorcycle. It's got a really nice exhaust note, and when you really twist the throttle back, it wants to be up on the cam, and it really starts to boogie and starts to accelerate when you're up on the cam. So it's got a little bit better braking than a typical 550, and I wanted everything to be very severe and very acute when you're riding this. And I want one of the best representations that Kott Motorcycles is capable of to be on, you know, the other side of the pond from us. This is Dustin from Kott Motorcycles. We're up here in Newhall, California, and we're going to be taking a look at this 1975 CB550. I've nicknamed it the UK 550 because it's on its way to England. One of the big challenges for a 550 is getting it ergonomically positioned for a bigger guy like myself, and also this bike's going to a guy who's about 6'4". So I don't want to make him look like a circus bear on this thing. And there's a couple of different things that we did. We added a 750 front end, taller rear shocks, just to get the whole seat height up on this bike and to give it the impression of a bigger motorcycle. It was our job to approach some of the street legality issues that normally we don't have to approach really in California. California is a very motorcycle friendly state, and especially with street legality. We decided to use a 750 front end on this. The yokes are the same, the top and bottom triple, but we used 750 springs, fork tubes, and sliders. And it gave the front end a little more height, so that, you know, for a taller guy, I wanted to appropriate it to feel like a bigger motorcycle. Doing, again, the Excel shoulder aluminum wheels, there's just no better option as far as performance and looks. And then we're using Avon Venoms on the front and rear. These things are killer, man. They have such a great soft compound. They're good for cornering. More tire than you'd ever really need on an old vintage bike like this. We had to run a Speedo in England. That's imperative. Ironically, in California, it's not required by law to have a speedometer, so we don't often run them. But this one, we decided to do that, and the color matching of the headlight just brought that sort of fullness to the front. I finally found a decent mirror setup that I like. These are intended to be bar end, but if you take some of the mechanism out of this clamp, you can use it as a 7/8 bar clamp type mirror. And so I looked into the legality of that. Left side mirror was sufficient. And this was a new touch too. This is a blinker setup. So we'll see in the back when we get there, you'll see that these, you know, you have to be in contact with them, just like the old Harley Davidsons. You have to actually be in contact. It's not you can't just push it and then cancel it. You have to be in contact for it to be illuminating the blinker. But this was a really nice setup. I mean, it just disappeared. So this is a Suzuki GS650 fuel tank. A couple of advantages. These Suzuki tanks have such big tunnels you can hide a packed lunch under there. So that's what we did. Real severe knee cutouts, and it also matches our hole pattern for our tank badges. So these are actually threaded in, which is a kind of a nice touch. It just looks finished to me. As always, we've got a rebuilt motor, you know, stock displacement, stock Honda rings, but all the valves been recut, the cylinders are freshened up, new gaskets. I've been using the multi-layer gaskets from Cycle X lately. They make them in 550s as well, but it's a metallic gasket, and we've had zero problems with leakage, which is a big problem on these old warped heads from time to time. Unless you kind of deck the head, they can warp a little bit, and that Cycle X gasket takes out some of the slop. Refurbished carburetors, completely taken apart, inside and out, completely brand new. We call it a splash guard, but it's just a nice shaped radius cut panel that fits into the frame rails. And what it does clearly is that it keeps all the debris that the rear tire is going to kick up. It keeps it from interfering with the carburetors. And this is especially important with velocity stacks, because you'd be shooting debris right into the back of the carburetor. Even with those velocity stacks, they have a screen in them, but it's just to keep chunks of earth out. So we don't run the same risk on this with these pod filters, but still a very important piece to keep everything kind of sanitary on this side of the frame. Lately, I've been in the mood to do smaller cowlings versus the tank size, and I think what it really does is it gives it more of a vintage stance, and it just harkens to that sort of genre. But I feel like the appropriation of size was perfect, and we decided to use this sort of ox blood leather that ties in with these grips. It was just a neat touch. It has more dynamic to it than just black or standard brown. Lastly, these Hagin Shocks. I've been using Hagins now almost exclusively on these builds, and for the price, it's probably the best shock on the market. And it's got a recognizable name. It's got the English heritage, which is kind of cool. So that's something that I have been consistently using. We'll either do a black body and chrome spring or a stainless body with the chrome spring. And then what's nice about that is that it ties in with some of these just very delicately placed nickel finishes. Just a few things that are nickel, these standoffs, the chain tensioners, just to add a little more depth, a little more color scheme to this. You know, as always, I kick up these seat rails at about a 10 to 15 degree radius so that it clears enough room for the taillight, which is attached to a splash guard. But when we close the circuit here, it's got really great visibility. First off, it doubles as obviously running and a brake light. And then we push down on our bar mount buttons. We've got left, we've got right. And it's surprising how well that actually works. I mean, it's got a lot of visibility, and it does show indication of which direction you're going. Normally I've got this starter button on the left side, but since we did the blinker switches on that side, we've got the starter button plumbed right into this master cylinder attachment. It's cool, it's super stealth, you can't even tell it's there. I felt like I could make improvements on the original design. And so we had this 4-into-1. Forgive me, I don't know what the 4-into-1 is, but from here back is just a piece of 2-inch pipe. I had it mandrel bent right here, and then there's a removable baffle that I made out of a stainless mesh. And I'm not real sure what the noise restrictions are in England. This doesn't sound that loud to me, but I guess we'll find out. It looks like it's loud with the slash cut. It has a very 70s sort of hot boat look to it, but I'm not sure. It doesn't sound that loud to me. It sounds really good. It breathes really well too, which was the point. This is that new design we were talking about earlier. This is a water jet cut aluminum bracket, and it houses this miniature Speedo. And everything looks so sanitarily tucked in here, and that was the idea. Now, these, I don't know if they were a requirement, but they're certainly advantageous to have. So as soon as we close that circuit, obviously the Speedo is lit. When we push the blinker button, we've got an indicator light here that shows that we are in fact engaged with the blinker, left and right. And then that neutral light obviously is, it's just as a convenience.